Recording now. There we go. And teaching and supporting you all in. And we've seen those protocols and frameworks bubble up, whether it's questioning routines, provocation, co-designing and co-constructing. These protocols and frameworks align with the values, right? And then lastly, the sharpest point to the triangle is supporting teachers in this work. You know, co-teaching, co-designing. I think of your inquiry coaches. I think of the people, if you're not in a room by yourself, turn to the person beside you or your other side, the people that actually are in classrooms doing this work, supporting one another. And so the alignment for me in that triangle across BDEC has been really clear this year. Clear values, clear protocols, clear teacher-to-teacher collaboration. So I'm very grateful for that. But I wanted to start with that, not just with a sense of gratitude, but just so you see how the work is bigger than yourselves, truly. You know, everything in the district has been designed and dismantled to center the student and the people in the place. And you all are really doing that powerful work. And we're really excited to hear a little bit of context as to what you made meaning from this year. What did you build? What did you do? And just some reflection. So I'm just going back to the agenda, because I know Erica is not in the room right now.
I'm back.
You're back. It's going to be Paige first. Paige's room. Do you want to, help us transition to the first share out, Erica?
100%. So I'm just going to get Paige's stuff up here. Trevor, I would say it is a wise plan for you to also get it up, just in case what just happens again.
Erica, so right now, our internet is pretty good too, so I could be a backup shared screen.
Yeah. So it looks like this, and I think we should just get started because we're a little bit behind schedule, but I'm sure we can make up the time as we go. So why don't you take us away, Paige?
So hi everyone, I'm Paige and I'm an instructional coach and vice principal at Maglock School. So I wanted to share a bit about our whole school inquiries, and then I have Miss Ali, our grade 1 teacher, here to talk a bit about like her class's experience with the whole school inquiry. So we can skip ahead 2 slides, I think. It's just so here we don't really have a model, but I wanted to kind of display how we've been approaching our whole school inquiries. So basically, both examples, we started with the cultural event and the place land first, and I met with our land-based educator. And like once we've planned all the paperwork and coordination of like the key cultural event, the coaches and PSTs kind of met to do some pre-planning. So in that process, we created a shared Google Doc with where I went through all the curriculums, through all the grades, and put in different access points for ELA, math, science, socials, that today we aligned it all cultural calendar. So initially it was a lot of pre-planning. Then we brought it to our staff for collaboration, where we, through a staff meeting, did a QFT question sort with our staff. So in presenting our lesson ideas and the key cultural event, as we worked on the question. Okay, and then from there, we added all the teachers into the Google Share Doc, so they all had access to all the resources and materials and lesson plans we shared, and we left place for them to add evidence of their learning. And then the last part is kind of where we did like a bit of feedback and reflection and celebrated the success, and were able to identify some next steps on what we wanted to work on for our next whole school inquiry. So this is kind of how I would model it. And then on the next slide, I can share some of our examples. Yeah, so the first one here, we were doing a fishnet pull, and there was a really cool Facebook famous video from the net that we were going to go pull. So that particular couple weeks was, they were getting so many fish. So this is a screenshot of the video, but in the provocation, you just see the 2 men pulling up the video, and there's so many herring. So we kind of use that as our whole school video provocation for the kids to come up with their own questions, and just a screenshot of like some of the math outcomes or literacy ideas we shared and suggested to teachers were like estimation, measurement, patterning, data analysis. Then I made a whole school inquiry wall, and we kind of separated it. Between us teachers, we came up with like 3 subtopics. So like the effects of climate change, because it was a really warm couple weeks, if that had an effect on the fish. So lots of the kids were really curious about that. Connections to culture and identity, and then traditional ways of living. So it was like a really facilitated process where the colors matched the BDDEC learning model. Then we had a flip chart where all the kids kept track of their data. And then with the help of Sean and some of the older students, they were able to do some data analysis here. And like the traditional knowledge shared by one of the fishermen was that as it approaches a full moon, you get way more fish. So when we plugged in all the data, you could actually see the correlation with the phases of the moon and the amount of herring they pulled. So the kids were really curious about that. There was lots of language integration. So we collaborated with the Innivalton teachers for the vocabulary and the parts of the fish. All the kids on the next slide, I think I have more pictures. Yeah, so all the kids from you can see the in and measuring. Some of the younger kids got to do like more of a fish exploration. So that's one of our essays showing the kids how to sort of cut the fish and talking about all the parts in Innivalton. Then they got to cook and eat the fish. And this is Ross here. So the kids made him a big thank you card. In the bottom left, like it was so cute. These are grade 3 and 4. So as the net came up, they started slapping the net on the ice. And that's just knowledge that they knew that that's a way more efficient way to get the fish off quicker. So I just thought that was a cute photo to include. So this was our first whole school inquiry, and like from our cycle, like the feedback was teachers' voice that they would want more support with like thinking routines. So on next whole school inquiry, next slide, we followed like a similar process, but this time we gave multiple provocations and we gave thinking routines that matched those provocations. And we did lots of modeling and examples in our staff meetings. But I have Miss Ali with me now, who's the grade 1 teacher. So this is like a little thinking routine with her class. And then she'll talk about her class's work with the Igloo and Northern Lights inquiry.
Hi, I'm Allie, and I'm the grade 1 teacher here at Magdalenic School. And Paige has been a great support to me here, as I'm an older teacher here, and it's new to me, and I'm really excited about it. So with the inquiry units that we've been taking on, so with the Northern Lights and Igloo building unit that the whole school did, Paige did support us with thinking routines and how to bring about more thought with the kids and more engaging activities and connecting to our curriculum. So we ended up having an elder come to our community or come into our class, and she was able to share with us, especially we wanted stories of the Northern Lights and life in Tuck, and had she had any experience living out on the land or living in an igloo, and housing in general for her. So what was housing like in the past compared to what is housing like for us now? So she shared some stories with us about all of that. And so from her stories, we also did some comparison book readings on Northern Lights. So the kids had lots of literature to listen to. They had books on Northern Lights. They had oral stories from our elder. Then we did the I used to think, but now I think about the Northern Lights. So some of the cute experiences and sayings that they might have was, I used to think were really pretty and I like to look at them. Now I'm kind of scared of them would be one example. But the language that came out of it also, like we wrote some poetry on Northern Lights and we did whole class poetry. So we had a few of those charts going with some whole class poetry and just the vocabulary that came out of it, like things like dancing and swirling and, my loved ones, things like that. So they were kind of bringing about lots of different language with writing and with their stories and with their pictures. We did some beautiful artwork as well, some oil pastels and chalks, learning how to blend and whatnot with Northern Lights. And then with the igloo, the whole,
Oh, maybe if we could skip to the next slide, this little video, I don't know if we'll have time for, but we just
yeah, Paige.
we just wanted to do an audio of the think and routine to support kids who weren't as strong in writing. But this is the whole school participation. But on the next few slides, we have like work that's specific to Miss Allie's class. So again, we did like the whole school inquiry wall. The kids helped decorate, and we kind of made this 3 categories again, where there was lots of lessons that built up to actually going out and building the igloos with and then these slides I'll let Allie talk about because this is her grade 1 class.
So yeah, so this is our class, and we talked about like how could we build an igloo inside. So we kind of thought about what we had for supplies that we could get to. So we boxes, because always boxes coming in and out of the school. So we started storing boxes, but then we started thinking about how could we build it. It went from really small at first to then being big enough for enough kids to be able to fit in. We talked about the shape, sorting boxes by size and shape. So different days we had lots of different piles with boxes being sorted by their shapes and size, about the shape of an igloo, the dome shape, how we were going to do that. So we were looking online and looking at shapes of igloos and doing lots of explorations with that and how we could get that shape. And then lots of collaboration with the kids where problem solving. First, some of our boxes were too small on the bottom and some were big, and then we didn't have lines that we could actually stick together, tape together. So eventually they did figure all that out, and patterning block design, they did their door. That's the end product there of our igloo. We ended up being able to get like the little front stick out piece, which is important for the wind. And we found some old sheets and we covered it. And to finish off our roof, we blew up balloons to get that dome shape. And that's what's kind of helping make that more of a dome shape, because it didn't look right with just our boxes going across. And that was all them doing the balloons and getting them in there. And yeah, they did a wonderful job with just exploring the shape and design of igloos and learning lots about how they were built and the patterning of the blocks and problem solving.
Yeah, so that was really fun, and like really fun working with Miss she really took it on. Like I think her class met outcomes across every subject. It was incredible for grade 1, so that was really fun. If we discuss kind of like the student success and teacher success of our whole school inquiries, like as a coach, for me, I feel like the students are taking more ownership of their learning. I see lots of collaboration, lots of really good mentoring between classes. Classes have buddied up and they have like reading buddies and all of that. Improvements in perseverance, really good problem solving. So like in both of the whole school inquiries, there were lots of connections with climate change and some connections with erosion, and a lot of the kids just getting really passionate about protecting the environment and like roles and responsibilities and capable person. I've seen lots of increase in the ORC skills, research skills. I think for our teachers, they've done such an amazing job with connecting to the community, and like we all learn together and share our work together. And yeah. Oh yeah, and then some assessments. I've seen self-assessment, peer assessment, a lot of more hands-on assessment and process of a product, co-designing and co-constructing. I think conferring is one, like as a coach, that I'd like to learn more about to support teachers in. I think that the learning was really student-centered and connected to place, because inquiry, we always started with the place and community first. And as we went through it, then like the outcomes just, like the more you learn, the more connections you can make. So I think that's the biggest tip and the biggest help for us, is starting with the community in place first, and always following our cultural calendar. And a lot of the competencies and skills, I would say, are like personal and cultural identities, communication, collaboration, lots of creative thinking, critical thinking, and a lot of personal and social responsibility. And here at the bottom photo, we had this agency called Smart Ice come in, and they do lots of climate monitoring and ice monitoring. And he came in with all of his little techie stuff to show the kids. So we've been really trying hard this year to incorporate lots of more STEM and coding. That's something that I really love to do. So the kids are really interested in that, and always lots of connections with the climate change.
Paige, is that kind of wrap it up for this section of your share? Are there
Can you just go next for a quick second? I think that is it. Oh yeah, that's it for this one. Thanks, Erica.
Goodness.
Yeah, go ahead, Trevor.
Well, you know, Allie, could you come back on for a second, Allie? I just want to pick on you because you're amazing. And Allie, I'm just so grateful for your courage in jumping into this work. And I was hoping that you could speak briefly, Allie, to Paige's role in helping this be successful. Because school-wide inquiries, that feels a little overwhelming. And you know what I'd like to do is, like, I want every school in BDEC to do these school-wide inquiries, these whole school inquiries. And Allie, I'm just curious, could you shed light on Paige's role in helping that happen? Like, I know it was pivotal. I'd love to hear it from you, Allie. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, I just keep telling Paige, like, I'm so thankful for her support, actually. And, you know, we arrived here at Tuck for the same year. So it's our 5th year, but I'm like 25 years older than Paige. So anyways, I don't know, like, I love learning new things. And so when Paige brought this to staff, like she brought it to whole staff meetings, and she just came with such enthusiasm with it, and like saying, like, this is the first one, we're gonna really work together. I'm here to support you. This is how, you know, some of the ideas that we have, and she brought in ideas from staff. So that was really important, that, you know, she came with tons of enthusiasm, and she's, I'm here to support you, and let's do it as a whole school. So using our teachers that, you know, have more experience, that are from Tuktoyaktuk, that have our land-based learning, bringing them in to support us. And, you know, it just kind of went from there. Then I was like, how can I do more, kind of thing with Paige? And then I was like, when can you meet with me? That kind of thing. And she was like, anytime. So then I was like, well, I'm not that great with technology. Like, I really want them to do this. And she's like, all right, well, then you let me know when it's going to happen, and I'll come in and do those videos for you. And I was like, okay, that'll work really great. So anything that I knew where I maybe was lacking in ability, she always stepped up and said, I'll help you with that. That's not a problem. So that's kind of how it went. And then we looked at curriculum, and the more you have two, kept telling her, the more we had like two heads together, the more I got excited, because then it was, oh, well, look at how this connects to this part of my curriculum, and look at what I could do with this part. And she's like, that's awesome. I always said, like, after our conversations, I just had so much for ideas to generate off, versus when I was just trying to think about it myself.
Yeah.
And that's where I was at.
Yeah, I love it, Allie. Thank you for the sharing. And friends, as I share a little bit of my thinking from Allie, please, any connections or kudos or gratitudes to Paige and Allie for their sharing, you could throw it in the chat. Any questions you have, you can throw them in the chat. And Allie, as you were sharing, thank you. Friends, as Allie was sharing, I couldn't help but hear, it's easier together. It's better together. It's overwhelming, Allie, not your words, those are mine, but overwhelming when we're tasked to do it alone, or when it feels like it's too much. And so, friends, I just encourage you to lean on your community, your teacher community, and also the people in the place. We are learning from those around us. And that was just such a through line, Allie, to your sharing there. And yeah, just to be really frank, I'd love to see whole school inquiries next year. And Allie just kind of spelled out some key ingredients for us. You know, how are we going to orchestrate this work? It sounded like it takes enthusiasm, support, and a little bit of buoyancy. We'll figure it out as we go, and we'll figure it out together. So I really appreciated that, Allie. Thank you, Paige and Allie. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. E3 Secondary saying it sounds like a really strong culture of collaboration. How did you encourage that through the school community? I know I heard you say enthusiasm. I heard you say we'll figure it out together. Paige, can you give us one little tip, one little trick in terms of building a school community?
I think it was a bit of a gradual release. So like the first inquiry was more optional and it was kind of not as far ahead planned as I would have liked. But then the second one, we had like a whole month where teachers had time to plan and prepare before the actual igloo build. So I think that was a help. And then I think another big help is voice and agency of the teachers. And I think if I would have just gave them the essential question, it might not have been as meaningful. So I think collaborating as a staff and doing our question sort and narrowing it down, that's really good that everybody had input. And I think that instead of showing to a meeting and saying, okay, guys, how are we going to plan the whole school inquiry? I think it was really helpful for me to have planned a bit so that I had tons of ideas for every grade so that I felt that they had access or a point of interest for their class.
Love it. Love it. Shut the front door, Paige. So you're essentially giving your teachers what we want teachers to give to students. Essentially, Paige is modeling that a gradual release of responsibility over learning worked for teachers. Guess what, friends? That's what our scholars need. That's what our students need. We think of the swimming pool graphic, right? Scaffolding. And then secondly, she said, well, there's voice and choice, there's teacher agency, all the things we want for our scholars, all the things we want for our children, we need to experience ourselves. Teacher agency, curiosity, voice and choice. Paige, thank you. And I know that's not, it's easier said than done, but actually it mirrors beautifully. It mirrors beautifully.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone there. Erica, we're going to continue along, right? I know time is of the essence and people are looking at the agenda. We go slow to go fast here. What's next? Who's next?
So while we transition to MKS's sharing, if you want to use the chat to sort of drop your thoughts on Paige, and Paige's share for MK or MS's full school inquiry projects. I want to say a big thank you and koyanine to Paige and Allie and whoever else is in the room there for supporting that work. And like I said, just drop your thoughts in the chat, and MKS, you're next on our agenda. So MKS, do you want me to share? You want to share? How you want to work it?
You know what? Because I'm tethering from my our phone, one of our phones, I think we should be able to share, and then we can kind of seamlessly just kind of go through the slides.
I love it. Thank you.
So I will click share screen and not Disney Plus. Okay, so can everybody see our slideshow here? Yeah, are we good? Okay.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okie dokie. Well, props to the group that went before us for setting the bar so high.
Great job.
You've made us nervous. But yeah, so we've got several grades in the room with us, as well as an instructional coach. So we've got grade 1 teacher, we've got a 4, 5, 6 teacher, and then grade 9 teacher. So we'll kind of divide this up a little bit into, I guess, the 2 different projects that were going on. Nicole was the Inquiry Network 1.0, and then Jim, Melanie, and myself were the 2.0, the follow-up, the updated version. So I stole the slide from Nicole and put it at the front of our presentation, because this is kind of what guided our whole planning and our whole procedures. As Ali said in her slide, in her school slideshow, a lot of their planning started with the land. And Nicole, I don't know about you, but I know Melanie and I and Jim, we started thinking about the land, not necessarily the natural aspect of everything, but just the culture as well that surrounds Aklavik and the ways of lives. So we'll start with the 4, 5, or the 5, 6, and 9 project.
We did like a collaborative unit on,
ahead,
like
please.
folktales, legends, and just local stories, I guess, creation stories, and then we kind of made it into like a cross-curricular unit in terms of like, bringing in ELA and arts and, just cultural knowledge and just trying to obviously indigenize what we were learning.
Yeah, and so, in thinking of that chart in the previous slides, we tried to figure out, well, what can we do to connect with the culture around us, and something that's accessible for our 5, 6s, and 9s, quite a different age group range. And at the time, we were doing our drum dancing and storytelling unit. The language classes were doing that in Velma.
Like the whole school, like cultural.
Yes, sorry, it's a whole school unit where everybody's units and everybody's classroom activities should be tying into that. So we, in line with that, with the storytelling and drum dancing, we started to explore like fairy tales and folk tales, as Melanie said, and we tried to look for local legends and local folk tales. Specifically, we focus largely on creation stories, because a lot of the tales and the stories are about creation of natural phenomenon on the land.
Yeah, we had actually found one, I think it was local to Fort McPherson.
Yep.
Essentially, it's like a creation story about how the land came to be.
Yes.
And that the beaver essentially like kind of creates the land.
Yeah, like,
which we'll kind of get into after.
yeah, we'll kind of let our end product do a lot of
Yeah.
the talking for us. But yeah, we did give a lot of choices. We found a lot of different local legends and creation stories. And then when it came down to it and we were conferring with the students, it ended up being a land creation that
we had gone
decided
through a
on.
few of them, and then we just kind of had them, I think it was just kind of voting on like, which one that we all kind of wanted to find a way to represent, like through our end learning goal, I guess.
Yes, yeah. So we'll look at the unit structure in a second, but a big focus on this was figuring out, well, what skills are we working on when we're helping our children? And we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just academic. We have a lot of hands-on, we have a lot of social students.
And just a lot of different strengths.
Absolutely. So yes, absolutely, as we'll talk about shortly. But these are a lot of the different skills that were offered. Now, before we continue, I think, it's important to recognize that not all kids were learning the same skills, as we'll see when we look at how we broke down this unit. It is largely, as Melanie said, it was largely strengths-based. We wanted the students to be comfortable. And we wanted them to enter this project as we've been working on, kind of where they were comfortable and where they felt they needed to contribute.
And I feel like even though like they weren't necessarily learning all the same skills, like they were still experiencing like the space to go through all of those skills anyways.
Yes.
And learn from each other, just because it was like the 5, 6 class and the grade 9 class. So again, like a big age range, but like it was a way that they could learn from each other.
Yeah, and it was it was a very social unit. There was a lot of talking. I mean, I imagine a lot of people that would have walked into our classrooms would have thought that we were just having parties every day, just because of how much was going on in the classroom. But it was through like socialization that a lot of the learning was occurring. So our strategies and techniques. Once again, it was a lot of peer learning. It was a lot of, conversation and peer teaching between the kids.
Especially with like, the grade 9s kind of acting as leaders towards the 5, 6s. And, just certain things like when we were going through the stories and just learning about like myths and folktales in general, like, just kind of like sharing their own learning to the younger ones.
Even the grade 6 students who had good oracy skills were taking ownership over some of the grade 9s that don't like to be as oral.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we saw some students who were very much into the art aspect of this unit, and they ended up almost giving like their own instructional like lessons about these different art techniques that they were using in order to bring in what we wanted for this video, this project that you guys will see. Yeah, and so that also involved a lot of think, pair, share, and snowballing. Snowballing being when you're working on small little ideas and they just kind of grow and grow and grow. And I think that was probably the cornerstone of this whole project, is we started just with a simple idea, and then it just
especially
grew and
when
grew.
like collaborating with both classes and like having all of those students together, like it was kind of easy in the sense of like starting with a small idea and like everybody kind of adds in, you know, their own kind of ideas, and obviously it just gets bigger
Yeah,
every time.
yeah, absolutely. It was like its own self-reliant scaffolding. You know, if I can make that word up, not scaffolding, or it's not made up word, but I don't know, whatever. I'm rambling now. I'm nervous. But you guys still don't know exactly what the project was. So we started talking about stories, and what we ended up deciding to do was to take this local Fort McPherson. Well, we're in Clavitt, so we stole this from Fort McPherson, but within the greater region, this local legend of the creation of the land, and turn that into a student-created movie.
It was supposed to actually be like a dramatic piece. Like we were actually going to perform it at the Christmas concert, but then kind of as we went along and like we realized certain, you know, strengths, and a lot of our students are, I guess, more on the shy side and want to perform. So we ended up like, again, in talking with everybody and just like in our discussions and stuff, like we ended up finding like a creative way to still like have the dramatic piece, but in a way that like made everybody comfortable and like worked towards everybody's strength.
Yeah, absolutely. When we had originally planned for it to be a dramatic production, or like a live dramatic production, even I think Melanie and I and Jim, we were kind of tearing our hair out a little bit, because we were like, you know what, as great as this is going to be, but we've got certain students that
won't be here.
Yeah, they won't be here, or they don't fit into the certain roles that we have available right now. And you know, and it was actually it was the students that gave us the idea, saying like, well, you know, we remember, what did they say? It was something like, we remember when the high school kids did a shadow puppet movie. And so we were like, okay, well, that's something we could consider, you know. And then other kids started to bring in different ideas of like, oh, well, I've seen, you know, cartoons and stuff like that. And it just kind of, well, you know, bring that back. It just snowballed into this much bigger, grander, ultimately easier for Melanie, Jim, and I think, than putting on a live production, but also incorporated more roles.
And it was just cool too, to be able to like actually have something concrete that like, because obviously like if students were putting on their own dramatic production, like obviously you could like record it and they could play it back kind of thing. But like in this way, like they were able to like see their work come to life too. And like, it was just another way to kind of like, you know, revisit like everything that they had done and like all the hard work that they put into it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So this is the only embarrassing, well, I mean, you know, I'm sure there's lots of embarrassing things, but this is the only thing that is a little bit regrettable about this unit from Jim, Melanie, and I, is we didn't really take a lot of pictures. We're really bad, but you know what? We're so involved in our classroom learning that, you know, pictures, we just forget about them. Right? Yeah, we remember it now. So the pictures that we do have here, we've got a couple of pictures of the classroom. This is all on one day. This was a kind of community building activity. The grade 9s had just come off of expository writing, and just as a fun little kind of finisher to the unit, the grade 9s ended up writing their own recipes for pancakes. They made pancakes in the class and then brought them to the 5-6s. And this was kind of the first day of the unit, where it served as this point where the kids were just kind of getting to know each other, getting comfortable with each other, having something to kind of share with each other. And we introduced the idea to this unit at that point. So that was the starting point. And then the other pictures we have here, we've got a picture, you can't see what I'm pointing at, but we've got a picture of the land, and there's like a little cartoon image of sticks that's supposed to be a beaver dam. Sorry. Oh, I can? Yes. Okay, here. And then we've got some speech bubbles up here. These are student made, as you'll see in the video. And as we've mentioned, we you know, working with the kids, we had to find different roles for them, and some of them are much more tech savvy And we're interested in the technology side. So we created kind of this opportunity for them to, use their skills and what they were interested in. Let's see. Oh yes, it's movie time, y'all. Okay, so the moment you've all been waiting for, the national release of Aplavix beaver tail. Let me know if Erica, like we're tethering here. When we were in Shelley Moore's sessions a couple weeks ago, she was showing a video and it didn't work for us on our end. So if this isn't working for everybody, then somebody just let me know and I will upload it to Google Drive and give it to Erica so that she can mail out the link. How do I switch? Sorry. Okay, how do I switch what I'm sharing here? Can I do that? Do I stop sharing? Yes. And then I'll open up this here. Wait, pause.
Then you have to just restart sharing once you
Yes.
get it.
Okay.
How long is your video?
It's 5 minutes and 39 seconds.
Okay, just gonna give you a little bit of a time warning there. You're gonna have
Okay.
about 3 minutes after that.
Okay, you're okay with that? Nicole's good with that.
A long time ago, when animals could speak like we do, the earth was all covered with water. There were no hills, no riverbanks, no forests, no fields, only water and sky. All the animals lived on a large raft, including Raven. It wasn't long before Raven was feeling a little crowded on the raft. He longed to stretch out his legs on dry ground. Now Raven liked to be comfortable and well fed at all times. Raven, was a very wise bird, and if he didn't like something, he would think of a way to make things better for himself. If I had any earth, even a little bit, I would make it grow large enough for all animals to live on. Raven told everyone. Of course, all the animals were excited because they missed their old homes in the woods and forests or riverbanks or in trees. And they missed running and playing and stretching their limbs. But who would be brave enough to find some earth for a raven? They all knew deep in the water they could find it, far beneath their safe raft. Muskrat volunteered to search for a piece of earth. Muskrat remembered his cozy home in the river. It is true that this is not a river and that I have never seen so much water before, but it is water all the same. Down dove Muskrat and the water closed over him. After a long time, Muskrat's good friend Otter said, I think something has happened. I can dive very well. Let me try. And down dove Otter into the dark water. But like Muskrat, Otter never returned. Let me try off really. I could stay underwater for a long time, travel quickly over a long distance underwater. I should be able to find some earth, but like Muskrat and Otter, loons never returned either.
But they were concerned about what happened to their friends. And so all the good swimmers, the old squawk duck, the harlequin duck, the white-winged scooter, the golden-eyed duck, the grib, and the mink went down under the water and tried to bring back some earth, but none of them returned. The other animals feared that their friends and their brave friends had drowned. It's no use, they all agreed. But Beaver made one last try. Beaver was not only was a good swimmer, but he was a hard worker and a clever builder. Now he made sure that he tied a line around his body first so that he could be pulled back up out of the water. He dove so deep into the water, he almost drowned when he reached the bottom. As he struggled in the water, he clenched some mud from his paws. Beaver knew that when his friends pulled him up, they would find the mud. Sure enough, the mud was still on his paws when his friend pulled poor Beaver out of the water. He had used his last strength to reach the bottom and retrieve the earth and the water had been too much for him. Beaver had given his life to help the other animals. All of them were sad but thankful when they laid their eyes on their good friend.
Raven started to work carefully. He gathered the mud from Beaver's paws and formed it into a ball. Then he took his walking stick and ran it through the bit of earth. He planted the stick on the surface of the water. No sooner did the earth touch the water than it began to grow. Just as Raven said it would, it grew larger and larger.
When it was big enough to hold everyone, the animals stepped onto it from their raft. How wonderful it was to feel the earth beneath their feet again. God, their friends who have been so brave, they had given their great skills to find a home for everyone else. The small clump of earth that Beaver found soon grew into a beautiful land, and even today, Raven's walking stick still holds up around somewhere where the old crow and porcupine river meet. You can see it, and if you do remember the story of how Raven made the earth, and when you play on the lands in the summer, remember Beaver, and this is who were so brave and kind.
Okay. So I'll go back to this quickly before we continue. What was really cool about doing this project with the kids is some of the kids you heard in there are not kids that were reading, are not kids that would typically perform. And actually, even one of them has a speech pathologist, but he asked to perform and he asked to read. So it wasn't necessarily a strength, but it was something that he's very keen on learning. And that kid at the end, the child at the end, same thing, very shy normally in public spaces. And yet he volunteered to read that ending. We will let Nicole present in a second here, or you can perform if you'd like to. But we did follow up with this and then turn it into individual classroom projects or scaffolding. The 5-6s recreated the story in a comic book version, but they did it later. Oh, sorry.
That was actually, no, that's fine. This was actually for school-wide cultural muskrat unit. This is actually a different version of the story where the muskrat gets the mud and creates the land instead of the beaver. So I thought it was kind of fitting, and we kind of obviously tied it into ELA and even it was interesting because even that little splash there in the corner, that scene that I kind of tied into a lesson on onomatopoeias, and then kind of tied into my poetry unit, which I'm currently doing. So it's just a way to kind of build up, piggyback on the learning.
And then the grade 9s, to finish up their drum dancing and storytelling, they created their own drum dancing stories. They had to be creation stories. So I think the one in the middle was about how the rabbit was always white. In the winter was able to hide from predators, but in the summertime just stood out like a sore thumb. So rabbit ended up rolling in the mud, and then was brown in the summer times to kind of camouflage themselves. We've got a creation story of the mountains, and then a creation story of, I think it's of the moon. So yeah, that was our scaffolding and bringing everything together. Nicole, you don't have a lot of time.
Yeah. Can you hand
Of course.
I will go through it very, very quickly so we can save some time. So my unit that I'm going to talk about a little bit is the muskrat trapping unit that was a whole school, but then also an individual
an individual unit as well. This is just the Wonder Wall and Learning Wall that we use to showcase. At the start of every day, they would come in and get to write different wonders onto the wall, and they loved it, I think, just because it showcased their face. So it was a good way to start off the day. And just quickly move on. So this is one of the opportunities we had to connect to the South and the community. Students and myself traveled out on the land to the school camp where we had hands-on experience learning how to trap and skin muskrats. So every class in the school got to do this, and it was an amazing opportunity. You could see just even some of the kids that don't typically engage in maybe classroom lessons too well, but on the land they absolutely loved it and they thrive out there, and it was just an awesome experience. And so that was one of the ways we were able to connect to the community and really learn from different people that are out there all the time. This is just one of our different oracy strategies that we use. They love to think, pair, share, and then get to showcase. I think they really thrive when they get to kind of be the teacher of the classroom. So this is just one of the different examples that we use quite often in our classroom. They'll partner up and then they'll write down everything that they've learned in the unit so far. Maybe also go onto the learning wall and ask different questions and showcase their learning, and then they'll present it to their peers. And so that was the growing together. And then this is just one of the different ways that they showcase their learning. My students really love to create books. They do it all the time, and they decided they wanted to showcase their learning by making a nonfiction textbook. And they actually ended up reading them to their reading buddies. And yeah, it's just, they're very proud of their work, and it was a cool way to showcase. And then we put them out on display for anyone in the school. If they walked by and they wanted to take a read, they were more than welcome to. This isn't actually related to the Muskrat unit. I know we're running out of time. This is just a way that I do co-creating phonics. I know that it can be a very dry and boring topic, but it's the topic that I love to teach the most. So we, as a class, we create a city together, and they get to build the houses, and they choose the words that they want to put onto each street. And it's something that, like, I know learning walls can be things that can be hard to go back to, but this is a wall that they go back to every single day. They're constantly going to it saying, hey, let's add this word to the A street or whatever it is. And I think it's just kind of a cool way to make phonics into an inquiry kind of way as well. So yeah, I know we took over our time, so I'll let you guys keep on moving.
Nicole, gladly giving you more time. Guys, I got to be honest, you had me in tears. I was crying over here. Erica, I was texting you saying, what's going on? And friends, you both referenced how students that don't typically perform in class performed on the land, or performed differently, or stepped up in different areas that they wouldn't take risks in previously. And I really got to put on the cap right now and just recognize what it was that did that. Like, creation stories, right? We're not starting with Of Mice and Men. We're not starting with a text that is, settler colonial text. You're starting with something that they're willing to take a risk in, because they see authenticity and meaning in it. Like, we've got to turn the page here, and you're doing that. And I'm just so thankful, Daniel, and you're sharing. Like, I'm crying right now. It's just so sensible. And Nicole, you said it, like, there are kids in your class who don't show brilliance, and then you get them on the land and they're engaged and they're doing the things. Oh, that was epic sharing. Beautiful. And let's not compare ourselves to other people. Daniel, you started out by saying, like, Paige, thanks for setting the bar so high. This is all a step in a process, and you're all at a very different place. Although we are all in BDEC, you're in different communities with different students and different colleagues. And I hope that as we continue this journey today and tomorrow, that we just ground ourselves in softness and not comparing each other, and celebrating each person's growth in this process together. Erica,
Yeah.
any thoughts, any connections, any considerations there?
Daniel, do you want to say something?
Yeah, well, like, thank you very much for the kind
Yeah, we
words.
appreciate that.
But I guess that's a good point to point out, Trevor, because when you look at the units, that Nicole designed and us three collaborated on, I guess the purpose of it is to figure out where their strengths are and not to compare each other to other people.
And it really helps them like come out of their shell, like in that collaborative way of learning, I guess. And
I think they've all done a good job in creating caring, comfortable environments where the kids feel safe and they can take those risks, right? So that's a big step in getting kids to move forward.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Jim. I couldn't agree more. So much of your unit planning there, some of the slides that you shared that didn't have any photos in them just reflected how you were starting with the student and the place. You said it several times, Daniel, planning with strengths-based first. Who are our scholars, right? And when we do that, everything is transformed. Everything is transformed.
So we've noticed a big change in the classrooms, I think, and it was very daunting at first, doing inquiry with students that aren't used to this inquiry style learning, right?
yeah.
But it's definitely, since the release of the movie and the interactions, there's definitely been a big change in the classrooms and the confidence we've seen.
That's beautiful. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
one of the girls, even, I'm thinking in my class, sorry, she was, she's a very shy girl, but she's really broken out of her shell and is now involved in so many things. And it was, I think, this video was a big turning point for her. She was very much involved with this and did a lot of stuff, would show up early to class and stuff. And I've noticed a big change in her, like, academic and social journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to be really clear, that turning point was not accidental. You planned that shit. Like, let's be really clear. You planned that. And so when these things happen, it's because we're thinking differently about what we want for our students. Yeah. These are not accidental circumstances. Forgive my language. You planned that, and you all have planned that. And so as we turn the page to next year, it's an intentional planning in the right way. Strength-based, people-based, and place-based. Forgive me for being really frank, but oftentimes we don't honor ourselves in the work, and that happened because of your planning.
Yeah.
Erica, anything to add?
No, I want to say a big thank you for letting us watch that full-length video. If you could share that, that'd be amazing. It really is beautiful.
If I can just ask people, not like, if you do see it, just please don't post it on YouTube, because we don't have, there's a lot of images and some music in there that we don't have the rights to post online. So
understood.
But I think it was really palpable to see that student ownership, agency, success. I really loved how you honored them and how it was so multimodal. So just thank you for, giving the space to honor that work. And I know, sorry, it's weird time police kind of thing here. I definitely don't mean to do that at all. But I know that we're sort of approaching break. It's probably a really good time to just maybe drop a little exit ticket, kind of what was a takeaway from the things we've seen so far. Let's just take a really quick 10-minute break, hydrate, get ourselves ready for the next round. So that would make us come back at 10:25. I would say we're going to be using all of our time until 12. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you at 10:25 when we will begin again.
Making a cup of coffee. I'll see you guys in 10.
Okay, hopefully you're kind of on your way back from that kind of a bridge break, but we'll get started here in about 1 minute. Looking ahead to East 3 Secondary, we're pretty much not too far off track now, so let's, give it the time and space that everybody deserves and to share the work. And I'll maybe just chime in the chat with like a bit of a, hey, we're going to transition here in 5 to 7 minutes. That will give people a little bit of a warning of where they are. And
we'd love to honor all the things with all the time and just sit in each magnificent share. And I guess the conflict, the tension is there's so much goodness to be shared. So Eric, I appreciate your soft consistency in keeping us on schedule, and I am sure no one feels rushed or offended. Okay, so you're doing it beautifully.
East 3 Secondary, do you want to share your own screen? You want me to share? What's going to be the best for you guys?
Okay, we're gonna share our own screen, I guess. Okay, is that, sorry, I lost we're on a split screen here. Just give me a second.
I understand that. I started the morning trying to navigate Sonia's screen share situation, and it was overwhelming. And so I aborted, and now I'm just back on my laptop. Now I'm just on single screen.
Okay, I don't know what you guys are seeing right now.
We can see your stuff, and now it'll be slideshow mode. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we're just gonna do our presentation a little bit out of order because my colleague Megan has a prior obligation. So she's gonna speak to her example here. And I guess I just want to say, like, we're on the high school side. And so I think our examples will fall into sort of the beginning of the inquiry, what's the word I'm looking for? Continuum and pool. There'll be more individual representations of inquiry rather than like a whole school thematic approach. So that's where we are at now. Okay, so
thanks, Deirdre.
Good morning.
Morning,
This
Megan.
is an example of bringing in students' voice and autonomy and allowing them to shape the direction of the class as it goes. So social studies 20-2, it is a non-academic class, and there's a wide variety of students in the class and a wide variety of attendance. So the other element about this assignment is that it is meant to develop students' critical thinking skills and the big idea of allowing them to work on PowerPoints. And I have to say that was the biggest stumbling point. The students really don't, the majority of the students do not want to work with technology. They want printed papers. So we spent approximately a week learning how to create a copy of the PowerPoint and then add to it. And I've added examples from 4 different students who completed it. And the students represent the breadth of knowledge in the class.
Oh, sorry.
So it was a summary PowerPoint that was used. And PowerPoint talked about reconciling yourself as a Canadian and, for example, a Canadian who lives in Victoria versus a Canadian who lives in Inuvik. And so that's what they say, nationalist loyalties. Or another word would be hyphenated Canadians. That was where our conversation went. The students had already identified themselves as Canadian and then any hyphen they wanted. For example, Inuvialu Canadian, Gwich'in Canadian. And the first slide that Deirdre had simply said, we've looked at examples from the textbook, we've looked at examples of Canadians as a whole. Can you please now provide some examples that are relevant to you as a resident of the NWD, Inuvik, or a student for East Secondary? So I'm gonna go to the next one. These are examples that students wrote, and I also thought it was important to see what students writing looks like at that stage. This is not edited. And the first student wrote, but I don't know if I need to read it aloud.
Which one is, am I on the right? Is it this one?
Go back to where you.
I don't know.
You can read the slides. So the slides are there, and that's what the examples show. So up to the images. So go back. Go back. Oh, the other way, I think.
The other way? Okay.
Yeah. We face nationalism. Yeah. So the first slide was what I asked the students to do. These are examples. We face nationalism in many ways. Is by being loyal toward the national identity you continue to pursue. Such as loyalty to people that encourages a shared government, culture, and language. This depends on what you choose to be loyal towards, and you can have a sense of pride towards Canadian, Gwich'in, or Nunavut nations in the NLT. So that's an example of taking the concept and a student then turning it into their own knowledge. Do you want to go forward? Same student then carried on about how they involve themselves in non-nationalist loyalties. And for this student, it was family, friends, school, sport, and cultural practices. And by having dedication and commitment of choice. Do you want to go forward? Go forward again. And then this student added these different images to represent their nationalist and non-nationalist loyalties. For those of you who are not from Inuvik or don't know, the center image there is a photo of our school, East 3 Secondary School. And it looks like Nunavut dolls, and then a drum dancer, hockey, caribou, and blueberries. So another student took the information and discussed the Oka crisis. So it's not NWT specific, but that's how they represented reconciling nationalist, non-nationalist loyalties. Do you want to go forward?
Mm-hmm.
And then this student went on to also talk about the students that were killed in residential schools, and that's an issue that the student is working on reconciling. So from this, as a teacher, I have taken that we're going to discuss how do you be Nunavut, Canadian, Gwich'in, Canadian, Indigenous Canadian. How many kids were killed in residential school? There were 3,000 kids killed, but the total number is still unknown. That means there are still kids missing and mothers who have not been able to talk to their kid that has been going to school. And then that same student also identified Jordan Tutu as one of their examples. I'm going to keep going. And this is another student who again picked a local example of contending nationalist loyalties as Indigenous people who want to support the Canadian government, but also want to hold them responsible for the residential schools that took away their culture and language. So we used these two slides as modeling. I think the idea is very similar between the two students, and one student communication was a little more clear and they addressed the question more clearly. Another example is being a traditional Indigenous person or being a modern person. Both are good ways to live, but some may find it better to be a modern than traditional. And some may be torn between the two and could feel guilty that they aren't being traditional. Oh, and then that's it. So really just saw a wide range of student samples and examples, and we used that then to go on to the next chapter, which is called Contending Nationalist Loyalties, really means conflicting nationalist loyalties, and worked on figuring them out.
Thanks, Megan.
You're welcome.
Okay, so yeah, just to, our screen is sharing, right? Like you see our presentation? Verify? Okay. All right, so I'll go back to the beginning. need to do something here. Sorry. I gotta get rid of the speaker heading. And I can't.
Maybe push escape or something.
Is that arrow on the end?
Sorry. Oh no, I feel so goofy.
Yeah.
We're not judging. Minimize it.
Yeah, nobody is judging. Everybody has been.
Every time I move, it clicks into.
Drag it to your other screen.
I don't want it to click into place.
No, but drag it here, drag it to here,
Okay, I will.
and then it's just gone.
Okay, there we go. Okay, but you see our presentation? I'm so confused.
This slideshow. You're master.
Oh my goodness.
All good. You're killing it. Don't worry. We see everything you're sharing, and don't worry in the least. You're killing it.
All right, so like I said, some of our examples are just little micro examples of our learning. I'm a program support teacher at East 3 Secondary, but I did get to teach a little bit in biology at the beginning of the year before our permanent teacher or our year's biology teacher arrived. And so I started the class before getting into the content with talking about student goals. And this was just sort of a small example of using making learning visible. And in terms, someone mentioned that it's hard to go back to the thing post on the wall for our learning. What I found was really valuable for this one is because these student goals were individual student goals. So these are all the goals. This was a small 12-person class, and I knew what their goals were because they did an exit ticket, but then I just removed their names from it, put it onto the chart and posted it up. And it was really good to refer back to it whenever students were not engaging in the work or felt like maybe they couldn't relate to the material. And then we could say, okay, well, what is your individual goal for this class? And can this support that individual goal? Can this support passing the class by doing the work? So that's an example of something that can be put up on a learning wall that's authentic to, student interest, that's not related to content. And then I was able to, for the main assignment for this unit that I was working on in biology with the students, we were doing a mind map to consolidate our learning. And in order to come up with the criteria for it, we did a co-construction of the criteria for the final project. And so this was top down led, right? It wasn't free. It wasn't sort of a free inquiry for them. What we did was I pulled out guiding questions that were based on the NWT Alberta curriculum and put the students into groups, and they were each given 1 or 2 questions to then sort of flesh out that could become criteria for their mind map. I'm not very good at taking pictures, remembering to take pictures, so a little bit dry here, but student directions, they were given a bunch of mind map examples. They had their unit overview. They had the sort of directions for what a mind map assignment was, and we went over an example of a rubric. So they took their guiding questions, and in groups, they thought of what they would need to do on their mind map to show that criteria, and they did that on poster sheets, and then they shared out with the class. And this is we did a single point rubric for the students. So they took the questions, they turned the question into a criteria, and then gave their pieces of what I should look for that they've demonstrated that criteria. So if you see, so that the criteria here demonstrates understanding of how the nervous and endocrine systems regulate homeostasis, would go back to what processes and control systems are involved in homeostasis. So they took that question, and that's the the criteria and then the standards for that criteria they listed underneath. And so that's how we got to that co-created rubric for their mind map assignment. Okay. We did the social studies one, and I think our next example, Jean, I think the poetry example, Jean.
That's the small one. Okay. I got a few examples here, and I kind of worked my way from pretty small to a bit bigger. The first one is, you know what, I did to share this because it's, I mean, we have examples already of co-creation. And this was a very simple example. We used Laura Tennyson's Ulysses poem. And I just had students co-create area for which to assess a response they were to give to a critical response of the poem. And I was looking up just, you know, co-creation. And, you know, again, sometimes it's just easier when we get rid of the teacher speak when we're talking to our students and just make it easy for them to get. So I just said, hey, you know, I found this list. I want you to create a nice to have list. What you want that you think would be nice to have for me to look at when I'm assessing your work. And that just kind of was basic enough for them to really understand that, you know, they're getting some autonomy here in terms of how they want me to look at their piece. And they were very, you know, upfront and creative with some of their nice to have requests. And so we as a class included the nice to haves that, you know, were applicable. A couple of them were like, well, let's discuss this one. And we included them with the criteria that I'd already kind of looked at myself. And it came out to a really nice class created rubric for a poem that I think, you know, they may have been a bit more engaged in it just because they had some say in how we were going to look at it afterwards. So nice to have, it's just good language. Some of the nice to haves that we got, the use of immaculate vocabulary. If there were aspects of personal experience and or knowledge, I think that comes from a prompt from our diploma exam, which is coming up in about 2 weeks. Correct spelling and punctuation, the allowance, slang, and informal language. So more voice, I think, is what they wanted there. Quotes from the poem, they want to include that. Clearly expressed ideas, and me to focus more on the comprehension that they demonstrate as opposed to on the writing conventions. So I think that was neat just for them to, again, give their piece in terms of how they wanted this play, or this poem, sorry, assessed. So that was good. That worked out well. And then this one, I do the senior high English courses. And so I'm trying as much as I can to get away from the, you know, here are the questions scene or scene questions for Act 2, Scene 4, whatever. So this allowed them to really work together and to come up with what they felt was their adaptation of this Shakespearean play. We always talk about how, you know, so much about Shakespeare is that, you know, it's immortal due to the adaptations and the different variations that we see even to this day. They were quite pumped to demonstrate their understanding in a way that allowed them to research, to question what for them was important in terms of style, image, atmosphere, genre, and whatnot, and really just again create ownership, either working together or individually, of this very iconic play. Also, this is Romeo and Juliet, not Hamlet. Same thing. We did it for both plays. And so for this, they were able to come up or pick between 6 topics. I think they had to do 2 of them, or 3, sorry. And some of them included research. Some of them included creative writing. Some of them included personal writing. Some of them included Elizabethan, like iambic pentameter, basically whatever they wanted to focus on, based upon their interests and their ability to demonstrate how they wanted to demonstrate. And a lot of the kids for our Wisdom Fest, this is what they chose to share with the visitors of our classroom, because it was nice and very allowed them again to be very personal in their responses. And then this is the one I was talking about, the Hamlet one. So this is where they adapted their play. Sorry, I was a slide ahead there. The screen's right in front of me. I wasn't even looking at it. I was too busy talking. This is where there were 6 stages, and they were to take each stage however they wanted to. Again, questioning what for them was important in this play and to adapt it in the way they chose. So they would take the 12 kind of major characters and come up with their own casting, justifying who they chose. We had everything from Danny DeVito as the gravedigger, I think, to, you know, just out of the box thinking with some of these characters. And it was just so fun to, through them, imagine the stage with these very iconic characters of all walks of life, performing this play. And a shout out to one of our students, because we do these plays, like we do all the scenes and we act them out. The boy who did Hamlet, I think 3 of the projects, they chose him. They chose Sammy to be their Hamlet for their adaptation. So a shout out to Sammy. And same thing with the soundtrack. They were able to choose what songs they thought were good fits in terms of theme, character, certain settings and scenes. They were to create an image for their marquee that again spoke to the major theme of the play in their eyes. And then one of the most enjoyable ones, and that really got them thinking, creating on their own, was an alternate ending for this play, which again went every which way you could think of. And then they also had to do a soliloquy from, if you are all aware of Hamlet, there was Yorick, who never got a line because Yorick is the skull of Hamlet, the old court jester, and they gave him lines in the form of a soliloquy that he performed. And again, the subject matter of what Yorick would have said was very much owned by the students. So I got some amazing adaptations, some that I would pay good money to watch. And you could tell just it heightened their engagement threefold, just because they had the creative autonomy to do with this play what they wanted to do. Had quite a bit of fun with it. And then, Erica, I just sent you something. I'm not sure if you got it or not. I think I sent it last night.
I can have it. I'll need you to stop sharing your screen so that I can share it. Jean, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a time warning. I think Michael is still to go.
I won't show it all. Again, again, I do Shakespeare, and so students, they kind of questioned, how can I communicate the atmosphere of Macbeth without any words? And so what we did using this really cool PowerPoint software was we created these really large movie posters with nothing but the title and then their imagery on it. And we made this interactive museum that if you click on any of the rooms, Erica, you can just see again, our portraits on the wall. And then if you click on one of the portraits, there's a bit of a sharing explanation about what kind of is going on with that particular piece.
And I don't know if it's obvious from this, but those posters are like real life posters that exist in Jean's classroom.
Yeah, all of them are on the wall. Yeah, they're poster size, created by. And so they all got their names on them, and they were able to describe them. And again, co-constructing this museum that we still add to as we go year to year. So that was a pretty fun one that and allowed them very much creative license to really give us our representation through imagery of their ideas behind Macbeth. I'll stop there. Time.
I think that's really cool, Gene, that you use that museum year to year as a artifact place to sort of tap into, that you're consistently adding to it. Smart use of resources.
My classroom's only so big, so.
And so I think Adam and Michael, you guys, I'm gonna stop sharing. You guys can start sharing. Get you guys to pull up your E3 Share Fest.
Okay. So. There we go. Did you want to do that, Deirdre?
Well, if there's no time, we can skip over my QFTs.
Okay.
I mean, we do have a little, we may be able to co-op some time in the afternoon too. So we'll just kind of see. I just want to be mindful and honor, you know, our time, and just kind of give us an opportunity to have the things that we can also, like I said, we can co-op some time in the afternoon, I think.
So you want to skip all of these, Deirdre?
You do it quick.
I mean, I don't, Erica, how much time is there for our group?
Like 10 minutes?
Do you have 10 minutes for this stuff?
Deirdre, speak to it.
You can have 1 minute.
Okay, I can have 1 minute. All right. I just really like the QFTs. So I have just 2 examples of QFTs, but it started with my own inquiry here, which is like, how can I improve cookie cutter labs and make them more authentic for my students? Labs up here, there's a lot of challenges to doing laboratories up here. And one of those challenges is, and this is true everywhere, I think that a lot of times we just sort of look for a cookie cutter version of a lab, and then the kids just go through the motion of it. So I started with a provocation, which this is a minute video, took a screen grab of it. We only watched the first, I think, 15 seconds of it. And that was the provocation that we used. We were doing a lab on dissecting sheep brains. And so I started with a little dissection here of a human brain as the provocation. And the kids were grouped into 3 groups. So again, this was with a class of 12 students, and they wrote down all their questions. I think I timed everything as per the QFT model. And you can see the C's and the O's. They afterwards went in and sorted the questions into closed and open. And so there's all kinds of questions there, from thin to thick. After they were given an exit ticket, so they were given an exit ticket and had to pick 3 questions that, like, so they did this as a group, and then individually they had to pick 3 questions that were of most interest to them. They weren't obligated to pick ones that they came up with or that their group came up with. They could look at all the group's questions. And then what I did is from their exit tickets, on their lab analysis, put their own questions onto their lab. So for this student, so the first question is a teacher question. They had to do, and the last question was a teacher question, but the middle 3 questions were their questions. So for the student, can I buy a brain? If so, how? That's sort of a pure kind of research question for them. But they did ask, under a microscope, there's different sections of the brain different, and that actually ran out of time in class and came back after school on their own time to finish doing that portion of their question. Like, I guess, you know, just sort of emphasizing that when it's of interest to the student, they will put that effort in above and beyond the boundaries of the classroom. So they did small little dissections of the brain and did microscope preparations and did it under the microscope. Yeah, so that was one QFT there. And then another QFT, I was working with our grade 8 socials teacher. They were going to be having a virtual guest in their classroom, talking about the Renaissance. And so we wanted to help the kids prepare meaningful questions that they could ask the presenter ahead of time. And so help to develop their questioning skills and their communication skills. So I did a provocation carousel with the grade 8s, and I did it with the grade 8s. I felt like I needed that extra support. The links there, we won't go into it because of time. Here's the grade 8s engaged in that activity. So here they're sorting on a continuum drawn on a table, and then the script 2 had a continuum where they're sorting. Here the third picture is where they're discussing, caught them in discussion about where to place a question. And then afterwards, again, an exit ticket where they had to pick, I believe, at least 2 thick questions and 1 thin question if they wanted. And, you know, I mean, I would say most students are engaged. You can kind of see in the background of the second picture, there's one kiddo curled up on a chair, but that happens.
If you don't mind, actually, we'll probably have to transition a bit there. Sorry, I really hate to be tight on the time there. We just have a lot of.
Okay, thanks, Deirdre. So me and Michael are just gonna sort of focus on how within the whole school, pushing sort of inquire student-centered learning has sort of taken up bubbles as influenced and altered the way a lot of our teachers are sort of talking and utilizing their classrooms. It started with our interpretation of Wisdom Fest, which I can quickly let Michael speak to.
Sure. So you can see the unique challenges of looking at collaboration and inquiry in a high where we are traditionally a little bit more likely to focus in on our own subjects, look at transdisciplinary opportunities. So really what we did, just say, let's have an open curriculum event. We called it Wisdom Fest at the time. Maybe next year we'll disambiguate the terms so that Wisdom Fest can be one single event and that we can continue with a culture of kind of open curriculum events with like another terminology maybe. But basically what we did in-house was invite all of our teachers, all of our subjects to open their classroom at some point, the date of which was up to them to choose, and kind of the formatting also just could be dependent on their subject, their expertise, their interests and their passions, as well as those of the students. So we started with an in-house Wisdom Fest, if you will. And that was, are we okay to move?
Yeah.
And that was, I think, super successful. And you've seen bits and pieces of it here from the teachers that have shared and the instruction that we've already shared. But basically every moment was really interesting where we could start to see the shape of our learning and take a moment to reflect, let the students get behind it to share so that every single student had that opportunity. And we could see, you know, we could share as teachers as well to kind of, again, we're trying to develop a language of collaboration and a culture of student-centered learning, and not always easy. I think we're taking notes from Paige's approach with having like terminology and timelines and meetings with it, you know, kind of coordinated in advance. We'll probably try to hit a little bit more of that next year. So just have a look. There's beautiful, amazing things. You can see Jean just shared right before us, and down there in the bottom left-hand corner, our students reading from their choice of how to respond to Romeo and Juliet, and are inspiring one another with like really passionate stylistic voices and writing letters to each other in like an old style. Just have you note as well in the bottom right-hand corner, our students, Rylan and William, because what we'll see is we'll see them debating there in a philosophy class, not science, but philosophy, which normally not have been included in a science fair. And we'll watch them progress through the next stages, where now we went to a Wisdom Fest, was a district-wide event.
Yeah, so this was just continuing on. So even though we had every school every classroom focused on sort of their needs and what the students' needs, we still were able to have students volunteer and encourage. So if we had some that were really stood out, we tried to actively encourage those students. But a lot of students, like Ed's son, for example, he wanted to go on to the next level, and he was quite proud of his Shakespearean slang and things like that. So it was just really interesting to see students that might not normally take such a passionate role behind their learning and what's going on in their classroom and want to share what they did. And so even though we didn't do it as a school, we did have presentation at the regional level.
So I'll just say too, top left and top middle, you can see a student here also sharing the ulus that she created in shop class. she went ahead and created her own PPT to describe the process of making those. And you can see Jerry Kassoon, our elder and one of our elders in the community, as well as some of our youngest students asking questions and connecting with that. And then bottom middle, we see again to see them, but Rylan and William again sharing an audience now and taking this to the next level for a school-wide share rather than just in their class. And here's the third step for Rylan and William, who went on to represent us at the National Science Fair and in Edmonton and took a bronze medal home for their age category. They were so excited. They had support at this point from Jen, who did a great job taking them to the next level of kind of rubric science sharing. And that is an excellent opportunity for them where they walk away talking about different universities that they're considering and that kind of thing.
And just to highlight that, so that from a philosophy class. So it just sort of shows when you open up that little bit of that window into student-centered learning, and you're allowing them a little flexibility within what their interests are, they take those interests to unimaginable like areas. This is just a pure example of where that could go.
And then the knock effect, perhaps, just all different little strategies. Some of them are micro, some of them are macro. The success of that student down below and the Ulus, who is now selling those Ulus and asked on the street if she can make for different people. Making sure our junior high school students have the opportunity to work collaboratively, not kind of isolated one page with one set of questions, but working on things as a team, making sure that our learning is visible on the walls, whether it's character development or thematic development. T there in the middle. There is on the right-hand side, there's a student who responded to poetry with artwork. And in the top left as well, some more kind of institutional knowledge, people experimenting with how student-led conferences can be and out shape of learning so that when parents come in for meetings, it's not just a sit down and talk face-to-face, but also students involved in sharing their learning.
Yeah, and we can see our PST team is using it with our support assistants and helping our support assistants develop their professional learning, using some of the required strategies. And this is an example from the way our teacher has structured her entire classroom. She used to do where you would do, we're all doing this project now, and her engagement was, she said she was always fighting. This year, what she did is she had a bunch of different activities that the students could do and how much sort of the value of each of those activities was. And for the whole term, they would need to get 3 points. And so the students were able to choose what they were going to be working on, when they were going to be working on it. And then when it's up to the art, grade 11 and 12 art, they have this your choice, which can be 1, 2, or 3. And that's one where the students can co-construct with her their art project, and then they can sort of figure out how that's going to be weighted and what medium it is. And she sort of bases it on, you know, what her outcomes are and how many outcomes that project can entitle and the amount of work that project is. She says since she had this model, her in-class instruction time has increased because instead of having everybody doing the same project, now she has to micromanage a bunch of different students. But she says not once has she had to at all this whole year, not once has she had to engage a student in not wanting to do their work. Of course, they'll have their off day where it's just an off day, but before she'd have, they don't want to do anything in their project and they're just motivated. She says the student has been engaged this year and had an interest and want to do what they're working on because they've now regained their voice in class. So it's been revolutionary for her as well. So these are just some of our examples of how, as a school, we're pushing out. So we're still not at maybe where like Mangalal is, where you're doing amazing whole school stuff. But within the structure that we have, we are seeing an increase in our, our student voice, our student choice, inquiry type projects. We're trying to share these sites with our staff to sort of continue on the momentum and the conversation that I think I've had teachers ask if they could do a second wisdom test that I never thought they were so reluctant to do the first one. because of how they felt it was so successful, and just seeing their students get so excited about taking ownership and sharing, it really sort of transformed their sort of thought processes around it. So that's where we're at.
Thank you, everyone in that group, everyone in that room. That was a lot of sharing. How many colleagues shared? I think there were 6 of you. Is that right, Michael? Were there 6 of you in that room?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. You know, a clear through line from everyone sharing in that room for me, Erica, was co-constructing. And friends, we know that is an inquiry underpinning, and something that we've been flexing as a strategy and a protocol, gosh, for the last couple of years. And I'm just very appreciative that at the high school level that we co-design and we co-construct with our scholars. And obviously the immense benefit of that was demonstrated in the sharing there. Friends, throw ideas, comments in the chat. I know there was a lot of praise, and you know, Jean, as you were sharing your Shakespeare units, MKS was singing your praises and celebrating. Erica, any additional thoughts there? I know time is a factor, so forgive me, Erica. Time is a factor. Any additional thoughts from you?
No, I just really appreciated the mix between lifting up student successes, lifting up student empowerment and agency, and then also having your own voices say which part of this you really connected to as well, right? So that putting it in the student's hand and having them have that empowerment and ownership. We saw that in Megan's. Deirdre, I think that connection of like the QFT and liking the way that the QFT can direct learning, and then being interested in that as a teacher yourself, and then also seeing the impact for students is really valuable. Michael, I really appreciated the way in which actually Jean and Michael's both, that Jean's project led into Wisdom Fest, which led into that open showcase that Michael, I think you had a huge part in. So I think the way in which your work collaborated with each other was really great. And I just appreciate all of you for figuring that out. I know there are a lot of you, so thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Tanya, how are you doing? I haven't called on you yet, and you've been so like, I've seen a smile on your face. I see you writing things down. What are you thinking over there, Tanya?
Oh yeah, it's just taking it all in, and really excited to see and hear the incredible work that that all of these teachers have put in, and the successes that their students are sharing with not only the teachers but also other students and community. I think that's really exciting. So I'm just taking it all in.
Soaking it in. You're along for the ride. Well, we're grateful you're here. Go ahead, Erica.
Thanks.
I just need to do some logistics here. East 3 Elementary Schools, has Aaron joined you? Anyone in Amy, Mark, and Jesse's room, and Katie? I might need to make a little schedule change here. Can you guys hear me? If you can, you're on mute. Maybe in that space right now. Okay, well, I'll just move on without that. I just, somebody was gonna come in from Eastern Elementary and just join and share a little project that they worked on. So I thought maybe I'd flex the time, but maybe they're not in yet. So thinking about that, Brian and Santana, who are kind of next on our list there. Brian, I'm a little nervous about the internet connection to host your video through the Zoom. I'm wondering if maybe what I'm sort of thinking maybe we'll
Hey Erica,
provide
it's
the
Katie.
Oh, sorry. Hey.
I'm so sorry. Erin hasn't been relieved. We're a little short on staff. When she gets her prep at around 11:20, she may join us.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for the
Sorry.
update on. I'm wondering, Brian, if I give the link to the crew before lunch, if they can kind of watch it on their own, and then we can chat about it in the afternoon. What do you think about that, Brian?
Yeah, that works. So my grade 12 English class is right after lunch, so I was actually gonna step out and teach that class.
Right.
I can totally, let me see. Yeah, we could arrange to view it another time, and I could talk about it.
Well, what I actually might do, Brian, is I think I might give the link to everybody and see if they can watch it in like at the end of the day today or before our session tomorrow. And then I'll flex the time in the morning so that you can speak to it. Will that work? Kind of
Awesome.
like a
Sounds good. Sounds good to me.
Okay, so that's gonna come to you guys in the day today, at the end of the day. I'll make sure that we have time to
And
watch that.
just to be clear, Erica, just to be clear, friends, it's a must watch. You got to watch this video. Thank you for taking us on your journey, and I really enjoyed it. So friends, it's a must watch for homework, non-negotiable.
So we'll provide time, and then you can watch it even between 8:45 and 9 tomorrow morning, and we'll just flex the schedule a little bit so Brian can speak to it tomorrow morning sessions, because it is really an interesting, engaging watch. And I appreciate the preparation that went into that, Brian. So appreciate that. So what we're gonna
Erica, really quick in the chat, Aaron's in E3 elementary now.
So what we're gonna do is, if you don't mind, Santana, I'm gonna let Erin come in this block because she's on limited release here. And their school is short staffed, but we'll get to you before lunch. So I'm just gonna switch the order. Does that work for all people?
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Santana. Thanks, Brian, for being flexible.
That's sorry. Oh, I just realized I'm in this. Give me a second. I'm in the same room with everybody else, so they're just getting an echo.
So let me introduce you, Erin, and let me just welcome you into the space. I really wanted to provide an opportunity, though Erin hasn't been in our inquiry network. She's been working really hard with her grade 3 team at East 3 Elementary School, putting in a lot of the moves that she's sort of hearing sometimes just by osmosis or, sort of in her own research and practice. And so when we put this Sharefest together, a big part of that is also to think about the work that's being done by all the parties and what we can really benefit from each other for. So this project that Erin is going to showcase is a place-based inquiry project related to spring carnivals and jamborees. And it's something that she also has coordinated with the grade 3 team at East 3 Elementary. So Erin, welcome to the Combined Inquiry Networks space. One thing I will say, we haven't quite figured out the system for time, but you have roughly 15 minutes. And I'll give you a bit of a warning for when that time has elapsed.
Awesome.
You have 3 more minutes.
Sounds good. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here, and sorry for the technological glitch. We kind of went in the same room and it was getting some feedback. So yes, my name is Erin. I teach grade 3 here with a team of 2 other teachers at East 3 Elementary in Inuvik. And one of our big units that we're kind of in the process of wrapping up is our cultural unit for May, and it's kind of switching into June as we up, and it is about jamboree season. So the 3 of us kind of got together and noticed that before jamboree, which for Inuvik is at the end of April, our children were getting really excited about some of the events that were in jamboree. So we decided that we were going to kind of explore a little bit more and do a grade 3 jamboree. And so how it works is each classroom kind of focused on different events that teachers kind of chose and that we thought the kids would be interested in, but also we thought might have a little bit more cultural significance, and we could kind of delve a little bit more deeper into that. So my class focused on tea boiling and plank walk. One of our other grade classes focused on skid races and muskrat skinning. And our 3rd grade 3 class did a deep dive into dog sled. And so the 3 of us kind of got together and brainstormed how we wanted to show and share this information with whoever wanted to explore it and look at it, whether it was our school, whether it was Erica. And we decided on this website that Erica has pulled up, which is awesome. So this is our grade 3 jamboree website. And I will give a little side note before we go. It is in progress. So there are some pages that are, because the kids actually design it. So after we did all of our learning and did all of our experiences, we actually had the kids set up this way. So we chose the background because we thought it would be cool for it to be a little bit of a map. And then the kids had to choose which background they wanted to use. And they actually added all of the typing, all of the pictures, all of the information on this website. So it wasn't really teacher directed, it was very student directed. And the one really awesome thing that came out of this is that we were able to bring in a bunch of different people and have those connections with a bunch of different people in the community that had to do with these races. So our grade 3 class that did the dog sledding, they actually had one of our local Inuvik dog sledders come in, and theirs actually isn't hyperlinked, Erica. So if you clicked on it and it switched to this one, they just haven't hyperlinked it yet. But essentially they came in, they brought in the harnesses, they brought in the pictures of their dogs. They kind of talked about all of the work that went into the behind the scenes and how they trained to get to dog sledding. So they did a really deep dive into dog sledding. One of my other teaching teachers, Kathleen, had the amazing idea to see if kind of compare some of the things that we do here in Inuvik with some of the jamborees in other communities. So what she did was she looked at skidoo and muskrat racing. That would be an interesting event. Skidoo racing and muskrat skinning. And she actually taught up in Ulu for a couple of years. So when they did muskrat skinning, she contacted someone she knew from Ulu, and they actually kind of asked questions about if they did any sort of muskrat skinning in Ulu, to which they don't. They do seal skinning at their jamboree in Ulu. So they kind of compared those two different things. How is it similar? How is it different? And so all of the islands have all of these awesome and amazing connections, not only here in Inuvik, but all a couple other communities within our school board as well. So I'm just going to kind of have Erica walk through the things that I did, because it's the stuff that I know the most. So Erica, if you don't mind, clicking on tea boiling, that would be amazing. So one of the things that really the only thing that teachers did for this website was hyperlink the icon with the page that had all of the information. So if you wanted to look at materials, you would click on materials and it will bring up the sheet that has all of the materials on it, which the typed out. Kids chose the pictures that they wanted on there. So this student chose and decided that she wanted pictures from the internet versus pictures of the actual materials, which is totally awesome. And I love it. So she typed all of this out. We brainstormed on the materials. She was in charge of this web page. At the very bottom in the right-hand corner, you can click on it and it'll bring you back to the island of the subject that you're working on. And then eventually in the corner of this, we'll have a picture of the entire grade 3 Jamboree Island that we can click on, and it'll bring you back to all of the different activities that we went through. So yeah, all of these are hyperlinked, have all of our information. One of the biggest things that we pulled into it was my class and another class was doing persuasive writing. So all of the islands have some form of persuasive writing, like why did we do it, or was it interesting? Do we like it? Do we not like it? So the kids kind of explored the persuasive writing within these activities. And then one of our other colleagues is doing procedural. So then we also got to the how to. So we kind of incorporated both of those pieces of writing throughout all of our activities and events that we did. And it was really awesome to be able to reach out to you. If you're looking at the screen now, this is from the 1965 Inuvik Jamboree. This was the promotional poster for it. And kids were super excited to see that tea boiling was also done in 1965, which is fantastic. Blew their minds because they were like, were you there? And I was like, oh, that hurts my heart a little bit, but that's fine. But yeah, so our main goal and kind of our end to wrap up this entire unit is next week. We are actually going to be hosting a grade 3 Jamboree. And it's kind of going to be like a family fun night where they can invite parents, guardians, aunts, uncles, family members. They can invite whoever they want to come into the school, and they are in charge of setting up. So for example, my class is in charge of setting up our tea boiling stations. And unfortunately, we're not able to actually build the fire and boil the tea at the moment. But we're going to collect all of the piles of sticks, and then we're going to time our family members to see who can build a pile and put the pot on the fastest with it being stable. So we're going to do the first part, and then with the idea that they would think and kind of imagine that they would go further on. Kathleen's class, we're going to do a mini skidoo race on our little Zoomy, I don't even know what they're called. The little scooters. Thank you. With the scooters. So they're going to kind of be the skidoo racers, and we're going to have a track for skidoo racing, and kind of make up all of these different games that we can do indoors during the gym and during our grade 3 jamboree. But yeah, so we have all of these awesome things to have, which is super awesome and super exciting, because we got lots of people coming in from the community to kind of show us the different steps, and obviously they did how to take care of a skidoo. I know Kathleen said that they were super excited to learn about all of the different types of skidoos and how they're different for each different race that you have, and all of the different modifications that people will make in order to hopefully win the race. It was a really cool deep dive into events that we kind of, you do jamboree and it's awesome and it's exciting and you do all of this fun stuff, and then to see the kids make those connections with all of those events, or oh my goodness, my uncle is the winner of the race, or oh my goodness, my aunt is the fastest at skinning muskrats, and they kind of brought in all of their different experiences and stories, which was awesome and fantastic to see. So and yeah, we incorporated a bunch of pictures of children doing the actual activities if they were able to. Dog sledding obviously was a little bit more difficult because there's allergies, all of those things to consider, but they're able to kind of modify, make their own sort of dog sled stuff. So it was really awesome.
I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. You're not going to necessarily be with us for the rest of the time, so I'm just going to open it up if anybody has any questions or comments for you before you go. Thanks for summarizing that so neatly and so timely.
I'm glad it looked neat.
I gotta say, Erin, it's just the coolest that this work is happening outside the networks. Like, you know, how did that happen? Why the heck are you doing this is kind of my question. Like, you're not in the network. I know we have our inquiry for all sessions. I know there are amazing things happening across the district. Can you just kind of try to wrap my head around that for me? Why did you do all this work? Big question.
Yeah. I mean, for us, it was more of, it's starting to get to the end of the school year. So you're always looking for ways to get kids engaged. You're always looking for ways to make those connections on the land, and all of those awesome things. I mean, I do not have an inquiry background. So Erica is kind of my go-to person of like, okay, I have this idea, but I don't know what to do with it. So she was really awesome. She came in and sat with us and kind of worked us through how we were going to do it, what we might do, and kind of, we had all these awesome ideas, and it kind of spiraled when the three of us met and we're like, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. Oh my gosh, we could do this. And then she helped us kind of make an order and put things into a specific sort of, well, not specific, but kind of into a way that we would be able to actually come up with this sort of unit. The website and this sort of thing actually came from a colleague that I was working with in Ontario. She did a really cool one when her children or students were exploring animals. She did the Toronto Zoo. So she actually had an interactive map of the Toronto Zoo. And when you click on the animals, it brings up videos of the animals at the zoo actually being taken care of. So when we were trying to explore this website or ideas of how we could share information, this kind of fell out of that sort of idea. But as for doing it, I mean, the kids were the ones that kind of sparked the idea, because they were talking about how excited they were for Jamboree before we left for spring break. Or when we came back from spring break, they were talking about all the events they were pumped for. They were talking about the skidoo races. They were talking about all of these different things that they get to do, the talent show that's there, the big feast, the celebration that they get to have. So we were looking for sort of cultural thing to do with all three of our classes, because we've never done that before. And the kids were so excited about Jamboree. We thought of a way to try to make it applicable to the classroom and not just have it be a community event, but also a school event. So this is kind of our brainstorm of how it went.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm just going to pull out 3 things I heard you say. When I asked the big question, Aaron, I said, why? You said it was out of necessity. You wanted your students to be engaged in a time when typically it's hard to keep them engaged. You said you listened to them. They were really keen on Jamboree, and you just listened, you heard it. And then you went to a friend. You went to Erica, you collaborated. It turned into a bigger collaboration with your grade group. And, it kind of circles back all the way to the start of this morning, doesn't it, Erica, with Paige's sharing at Tuck. We are better together, and we don't do this work in isolation. And when we have a question or we're noticing or wondering, we invite some colleagues into the game, don't we? So, Aaron, thank you for your sharing, and thank you for, jumping in today and inspiring us all with your work. Greatly, greatly appreciated.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Oh, I'll be knocking on your door more. You watch out. You watch out.
It's always open.
Yeah.
Did anybody else have anything that they wanted to ask Erin or comment before she goes on her way?
Please come to the Jamboree. Yeah, if anyone's at a Newvik and wants to come to our grade 3 Jamboree, it's next Thursday at 6:30.
And then Erin, when you're done, you'll let me know so I can share it on the drive, eh?
Yeah, no, for sure. Awesome. It's almost there. We just got to tweak a couple little things.
Beautiful. Please give our, praise and appreciation to your colleagues as well for being so generous and sharing their work. And thank you for speaking on their behalf and for joining us. And hope you have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Have fun, guys.
I love special guests. Let's bring in more special guests. This is good. This is good. Erica, who do we have next?
So Santana, thanks for being flexible there. If you're available and ready, and we'll call on you.
Okay. I'll share my screen.
You're going to share it? Okay, perfect.
Yeah. If I can. I don't know. Right here, I think. Window. Oh, this one. Ah, there we go.
Yeah, okay, I think we can see it. Can you still interact with us? You're kind of muted right now. So we can see your screen, but we can't hear you anymore. Which makes me think maybe I should share it and you guys should talk.
Does that work?
Yeah, I'm going to share it and you guys talk.
Okay.
That will
Sounds
work?
good. Yeah,
okay.
That works.
Okay, just give me 1 sec. I just got to find it, but you can kind of get started just telling us a little bit about it while I get it up.
Yeah, so my grade 3, 4, 5, 6 class did an inquiry about the First People of Canada. It is a grade 5 curriculum, so I had to keep in mind about creating different access points for my students, just given their abilities and grade level. So we started our inquiry with a mini lesson on skinny and thick questions. And then we did a provocation where we looked at different pictures of different Indigenous groups, like the First Peoples of Canada, like across the different locations. And then we did I call them sticky note challenges. So students kind of came up with their questions and then put them on the different pictures. And then afterwards, we took all of those questions and then we put them onto a continuum to take a look at where our questions lied on that continuum from skinny to thick. From then, we took those questions and we dove a little bit further into place. So you can probably go to the next slide. So we narrowed down our investigation to two different groups. So we wanted to start with our place that we know, so the high Arctic here in Ulu. So we took a look at the First Peoples that, which are their ancestors and a lot of their family members and things like that. And then we took a look at the Eastern Woodlands group as well. So we came up with an essential question together because we wanted to kind of have that unit be a reflection of the literacy that's going on as well. So we were doing a compare and contrast writing unit as well. So we came up with this essential question: what are the similarities and differences between the First People of the Arctic and the First People of the Eastern Woodlands? So with guidance, the students were given some voice and choice. We took those questions that they had from the original provocation, and the students chose which questions they wanted to investigate further. So they chose a topic, like within the questions, like we kind of categorized all of these questions into groups like housing or travel, hunting. And so to kind of narrow down the breadth of that unit, because it was like quite a bit for the students to be able to kind of take all of the information in. So through questioning and stuff like that, we definitely just took it step by step, narrowed it down to a specific topic, and then they did the research and investigation from there. So in that, oh, sorry, you can go back to that last slide. So you can see the students here, they had chosen, so like this group here, you can see they had housing as one of their topics. So from there, they took the questions that they wanted to investigate and they created their own little brainstorming chart out of that. And then we did some further research and stuff from there. So that's on the next slide. So the research and skill building was through a bunch of different avenues. We did read alouds, we did literacy centers, spent some time in the library. We have an amazing artifact museum here in Ulu at HKE. I wish I had way more pictures of it, but it's in our front foyer. So we took time and we investigated there, our place, and started jotting down different research that we came from looking at that museum. And then we did a bunch of hands-on experiences on the land. So this was our igloo building unit. We had elders come in and explain like traditional ways that they built igloos, the purposes of having those types of igloos. And then the students got a chance to build and create as well. So they took that information and applied it into their projects as well. There's a couple pictures of our students having a real good time. We also had some elder visits in. So this so happens to be International Polar Bear Day. So one of our students, this is his grandfather actually, so he's an elder in our community, very highly respected hunter, and had a lot of amazing stories about polar bear hunting. So we talked about travel and made connections there back to their place. This was our read aloud novel that we took a look at. It was a realistic fiction. And this book was actually tied to the Eastern Woodlands. So it was about the Iroquois. It was kind of like a legend story. So we were able to kind of connect the learning for the Eastern Woodlands people to this book as well as we did a bunch of like literacy explorations in the library to take a look at that side of what we were comparing. And then with the wonderful help of Erica, we came up with some success criteria for their project. So students actually had a lot of agency in what they wanted to choose for their success criteria. So we made sure we had a lot of Innu and Actun in there, that their questions that they had originally come up with at the beginning of the unit were applied into their success criteria, and that they were just able to speak to the different parts that they had researched for their topic. So you can see that student there, it turns out that all the students really wanted to make a diorama. So as their showcase piece, they could have made a poster or a PowerPoint, a diorama, like they had a lot of agency with that. But as soon as they saw that they could, create and build things, they were like, oh, let's go with dioramas. And they turned out amazing. So we did our celebration of learning. It kind of was a little bit of a process. So the final celebration was Wisdom Fest, but we also did a lot of peer assessments and stuff like that with the grades 7, 8, 9s. They came in and our students had practice presenting their projects to the middle school group. And so there was some constructive feedback given to these youngsters, and they really took in that feedback and applied it to their Wisdom Fest project their presentation for Wisdom Fest. So I think this picture here with those 3 girls, if you go back,
yeah,
they were so creative in like the way that they designed everything. So like, I don't know if you can see it, but on that hanger, they had, they handmade and stitched like little pieces of clothing to represent that group that they were looking at. So the creativity was just out of this world, and we were so proud of them. So here's a couple examples of the dioramas that they had come up with. So those 2 girls, they also did housing. That the boy and the girl on the right-hand side, they chose to do hunting as their topic. And then that's a couple more examples of Wisdom Fest. So it was kind of awesome. We had the younger group come in, and that one student on the left here, she's such an eager girl. She had a little activity ready to go for her presentation. She had some of the resources available to showcase like where she was getting her information from. So as a way of like sourcing the information. And that was the end of our main unit that I wanted to kind of showcase, but we did inquire in a bunch of other areas. I won't get like too deep into it, but this unit here, we actually got to collaborate with our shop teacher. This one was actually awesome because we were able to connect the science from grade 3, 4, 5, and actually put it into this project. So we had simple machines, we had stability, we had tension, compression, all sorts of different topics from all of those grades. And they learned skills on how to use power tools. They learned how to adjust that, and they had a really good time and learned a lot of responsibility. So really proud of them. This is the unit we're doing right now. So we also got to collaborate with the high school, Brian's high school class, and students here are working on the fur trade. So Brian's students had come up with this awesome activity for our grade. They basically made little fur pelts, and the students had to go on a scavenger hunt and find all of these pelts and then buy cookies with those pelts. So they stacked them up the old traditional way, and then they were able to kind of purchase that item depending on how many pelts they picked up. So we were kind of reinforcing some of the knowledge we learned from the fur trade. So we're in the middle of that unit right now. We're looking to finish that up by the end of the school year. And then here's some other pictures. So we did that igloo building activity that we did for social studies. It was cross-curricular for math as well. So we did an estimating unit looking at traditional ways of estimating and housing and how that affected their ancestors and their traditional way of living. So you can see the middle picture. We spent some time in the gym working on circumference and radius. We looked at shapes, estimating, and then they created their own little igloo models. I wish I would have had a final picture of what they looked like, but they painted them, and they were little wood shaped igloos that Dave helped us make as well, our shop teacher. And then we had some literacy stuff going on for instructional writing as well. So they were working on how to build a fire, and that was closer to the beginning of the year. And then we did a provocation here in the far corner for body systems and science. Basically, we were learning about the digestive system through mashing up peanut butter sandwiches in milk. It's such a treat. So there's just a snippet of some of the inquiry activities and provocations we did as we went along. So that is a celebration of learning from grade 3, 4, 5, 6.
Crazy celebration of learning. Erica, like I'm texting Erica during every share just so everyone knows, full transparency behind the closed curtain. I'm texting Erica all this praise for all the work that you all are engaged in. And for those of you following along on Instagram, I'm like on my stories, just sharing all the beautiful things that you guys are sharing. Erica, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I want to say, you know, a really big Kawana Santana for the collation of that work as it progressed. I think you highlighted again some of the things that, you know, we see as kind of common threads weaving their way through that idea of collaborating in and out with, you know, other colleagues and or the community and or like just the using your community of educators in your school really creatively to leverage the strengths and talents of both yourselves and then also to be able to lift that up for your students. So it really, in every one of those photos, you see really big engagement, big smiles, pride. So Kawana for that, it's really evident. So those were my thoughts.
Yeah, the students actually had a really good time designing their projects for that social studies. They put a lot of energy and effort into it. And I just want to thank you again for coming into our classroom and being so warm and welcoming and helping me get to where we needed to get to for that project. It was extremely helpful and supportive. And
well, and for me, it's a real treat to be able to see how it culminates, right? We only can drop in sort of for short periods of time. So we really could see the, you know, making those connections with those students and seeing their pride is really heartwarming.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, Erica, before we transition to the next share, Santana, I thank you. I just can't thank you enough. Before we transition to the next share, friends, I'd be remiss if I didn't challenge you all a little bit more. And I know you're like, Trevor, please, this is such a beautiful thing. Like, why you got to ruin it with a challenge? But I know, I know some of you are leaving BDEC. I know some of you are moving on, and the work that you've given students this year and the change and the impact, that's part of it, but I need you to leave something more than that. You know, Santana, your example, you've clearly had an impact on your students, but goodness, what are you going to leave for the next teacher that flies in and takes your position? I'm going to be frank, right?
Santana's not leaving us.
No,
so...
Santana's not leaving, but you know, I know some of you are. And what are you going to leave for teachers when they land to get their feet under them in a way that you've demonstrated today? It's one thing to have an impact on your scholars, such as everyone's demonstrated. I really want the shoes that you are leaving to be filled, taking the right steps that you have demonstrated today. And that is a challenge. I have to be frank. It's hard for you. But as a district, as BDEC, we're going in one direction, and we want people who are flying in to land on their feet, so to speak. And so I definitely challenge you to think about that. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that sounds like. I don't know what that feels like. But what we don't want is teachers landing and opening up the textbook to chapter 1. We want teachers doing the things that you've done to listen to the people in the place. And please keep that in mind if you are transitioning away from BDEC. How could you help someone land on their feet in a way in which it took you perhaps a few years to do so?
I think one of the big things too that makes me really grateful is even at, you know, all of the collection of shares, having them to be available for teachers to access and look at some of the work that's been done and just some of the models for engaging students in voice and choice and agency, engaging in, you know, like learning tech on the fly and integrating tech as a way to share out and showcase knowledge, that ability to co-construct both the content and the assessment with students, the ability for students to weigh in on the ways in which they feel most comfortable and confident sharing their knowledge. So all of those projects and those evidences of the work that you've been doing and the strengths of your students for them to live on in, you know, the repository of places where, you know, the resources for inquiry live within BDEC. So we really appreciate the generosity and the time spent to create those.
And that's precisely why we asked for photographs, right? And video, and like for you to capture the story, is so that we could tell that story on your behalf for people who join us in the future. Right, Erica?
So just a reminder, we're gonna have our last share for the morning. I've done some scheduling rearranging, so Paige is gonna join us tomorrow. We're gonna watch Brian's video overnight tonight. We're gonna start with that tomorrow morning. So that basically frees us up to have Katie Fontaine take us into lunch. So I'll get her share up just as a thought before, while Katie shares and we go to lunch, just thinking about things that you might want to tell your colleagues in the chat about things that you've seen and highlights. So I'll share my screen. Kuana again, Santana for that presentation and for those words. Katie, are you with us?
I am.
Excellent.
Yay,
All right,
Katie.
so I'm getting your thing up. If
All
you can
right.
just introduce it, that'd be
Perfect.
amazing.
Excellent. Okay, just let me know when you have it up. And in the meantime, I'll just do a little chatting. I apologize if I sound a little crazy today. I pulled an accidental all-nighter because the 24-hour sunlight is getting to me, so I apologize. So right
It's
now,
up
me
there,
and my
Katie.
students, is it perfect? Okay. So right now, me and my students are working on our life systems unit. So it's a little bit different for each grade. So Erica, if you go to slide 2. So I'm primarily focusing on the diversity of living things, which is grade 6 curriculum, as well as incorporating habitats and communities from grade 4 and human organ systems from grade 5. And an example of some of the outcomes that we're looking at is recognizing that animals and plants live in specific habitats because they are dependent on these habitats and have adapted to them. And that's kind of like the key word that I've been really focusing on with the kids for this unit is adapting and adaptations, and how the way that we are made up, whether we are a polar bear or whether we are a stick or a human or a giraffe or any animal in the world, that we are a product of our environment. And that can be, in how long your teeth are, the color of your skin, the type of fur that you have, and that all of these have resulted because of our environment. I've also incorporated, we've been working a lot on reports, and so that was kind of the primary focus for us for this unit, as well as creating art pieces that related back to the land and to the animals of this region. So my students really enjoyed that. Sorry, my computer's going crazy over here. Okay,
If you
there we go.
call out
Sorry.
slide 3, I can do it with you.
Pardon?
Nothing, keep going.
Perfect, okay. So if you go to slide 3, some of the key wonderings that me and my students came up with, or my students and I came up with, included why are our adaptations to our different environments so important? How do our adaptations make us unique from other living things? How have living things adapted over time to their environments? And how have we as humans adapted over time? And so these were the primary focuses for this unit, and kind of taking in all of those aspects from 3 different curriculums. Yeah, and Erica, if you go to page 4. So some of the strategies that I used for this unit included, I've been trying to use a lot of like think, pair, share, getting the students just to share their wonderings and their knowledge with the person next to them, as well as notice, wonder, know. And then as you can see in the pictures here, the students were working on a jigsaw, and I'm sure this is an issue at other schools as well. But it's that time of year where the kids are coming less, and we are severely short-staffed at Angic, but it was kind of a blessing this time, because it means that I've had a lot of the other classes combined with my class. So in this specific instance, I had the 1, 2, 3 in my class as well as my class. And we had this really awesome jigsaw where all the kids were sharing their knowledge about different invertebrates, and they were sharing anecdotes about being out on the land, and they were creating posters based around this. And it was just so cool because, you had kids who were of all different ages, and, they had differing abilities, but they were all working together, and they were all supporting each other in the work. And then they presented their findings to the class. It was really awesome. I really enjoyed it. And then Erica, if you go to page 5. So So yeah, how did I access students' strengths, capabilities, and interests? So at the beginning of the unit, I always like to do, have a talk with the kids, get them to brainstorm the things that they're interested in. And looking at the diversity of living things, kids tend to love animals. And the animals that they were most interested in weren't particularly animals from the Arctic, but animals from around the world and strange animals. So they wanted to know about axolotls, they wanted to know about sharks, they wanted to know about all these different creatures. But I wanted to also be able to bring that back to what to the region that we're in and the land. So we were doing a compare and contrast of the animals of the Arctic and their adaptations, as well as animals from across the globe. And the way that this ended up being was that when we were doing whole class work, we were really focused on, learning about the animals of the Arctic and their different adaptations and their habitats. And then the students were also working on an independent study project about the world's weirdest animals. And so basically they had to try and come up with what the weirdest animal in the world was, come up with a reasoning for it, and then also practice their research, create a report based around this animal, as well as creating art pieces and posters based on that. And Erica, if you go to page 6. So there was some different evidence that was generated and selected based on whether or not they were doing small group or independent work. So for their small group, sorry, I just messed up my computer. So for their small group, students were doing a lot of different thinking routines, including those like think, pair, shares, and jigsaws like I was talking about. And then as a group, the students would create posters, research various branches of the animal kingdom. And then each of them had a different role based on their varying strengths and capabilities, because I have a very diverse group of students. Some of them are working at a grade 1 level, some of them are working at a grade 6 or a grade 7 level. And so I wanted to be able to have all of the students involved in the learning, have them all of them have meaningful roles. So for some of the students, they were the researcher, some of them were the scribe, some of them were, the orator. Some of them were the group artist, where they had to create artwork related to the whatever it was that they were looking at. And that made the work really meaningful for them, because I have some students who really struggle with reading and writing. And so having roles like a group artist was really great, because they were able to take part in the learning in a very meaningful way, where they were taking part just as much as the other students. And then Erica, if you go to page 7. So continuing with the evidence that was collected, like I said, the students were also doing an independent study into those world's weirdest animals. So they were creating art pieces right there on the page. I have things. It was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, they created art pieces. Each of them was creating a report. And then they were also creating posters and showcasing their knowledge in a visual way, whichever way worked for them. Most of them chose posters. And then they also, throughout the unit, I like to have the students showcase their skinny and their thick questions on our Wonder Wall. And basically each student has a place on the wall, and they get to put their different questions up there. So, some of the questions were a little bit like, skinnier, like why is a goblin shark so ugly? And some of them were a little bit thicker, relating to like adaptations and such. And then also students next week will be taking part in a welcome to the zoo event, where basically the different classes are going to be invited in to come look at the work, as well as the community. And then we also will be going to the Parks Canada office to learn about the various animals of the Arctic and their habitats. So Erica, if you go to page. So how was learning student-centered, inclusive, and connected to place or community? So like I said at the beginning of the unit, the students were the ones who were generating what they wanted to learn about the diversity of living things and different animals. And it really went all over the place. There were some kids who were interested in Arctic animals, but there was also a lot of students who wanted to, extend that and go out into the world and know about all these very exotic animals. But I really wanted to be able to tie that back to where we are and our place and our space. And so it created this really interesting compare and contrast. And then like I was saying, students were in groups together. And so that allowed them to take on roles that were purposeful to them, where they could showcase their own strengths while working as a team. And so, you know, some students in my class that struggle with engagement were doing really well because they had an opportunity to showcase their own strength while being supported by their group members. And then, of course, expectations and success criteria were based on their working grade levels. So, you know, the work that a student is creating if they're working at a grade 1 level versus grade 6 level is going to be very different. So for some of my students who are working at a grade 1 level, they were creating like anchor sentences as well as like images to go along with their report, whereas my grade 6s were creating more comprehensive like reports. And then the students were exploring the animals that are native to Paulatuk and the surrounding region, while also comparing why animals in different regions and different places in the world have the adaptations that they do. And then, like I was saying, the community is going to be welcomed into the classroom to come see the work that they've been doing, as well as us going out into the community to the parks office to learn more. And then, Erica, if you go to page 9. So what competencies or skills were developed during this unit? So I've been really trying to get my students to work on their oracy skills and to vocalize their learning and their understanding in a meaningful way. And they've really grown with that. You know, they made a lot of strides with Wisdom Fest, and I'm continuing to see them grow, where at the beginning they were a little bit chaotic. You know, if it was time to, you know, present or talk, like they thought maybe it was just time to talk to their friends. But now, you know, they're really honing into those skills, which is awesome. They were also working on their critical thinking skills, considering why animals need those adaptations, why they're important to their survival, why we as humans have certain adaptations that are important to our survival. They were also working on their research skills related to those weirdest animals, and then also working on their report writing skills. And students' writing has really improved this year. But yeah, that's about it. Sorry for rambling. But yeah.
That was really quite beautiful. Thank you so much, Katie.
Katie, you're not rambling. What are you talking about? Sorry for the rambling. Like, come on.
I'm very, very tired, so I don't know if I'm rambling or not.
No, yeah, you're not rambling at all. You're not rambling at all.
Yes.
And you know, as you
Awesome.
were sharing your slides there, Erica, I was thinking like we could easily take her slide deck, and not that I want to do this, Katie, but get the reference here. We could take your slide deck and scrape out all the details and just keep the headings. And I think Erica, that's like a unit design template, isn't it? Like the thoughtfulness of the planning all the way to the reflection at the end, and what competencies do I want my kids, what competencies surface? Like we can just take the template and use it as a unit designer, couldn't we?
Trevor, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna logistically let you know, like if anybody needs to step out, because I know it's approaching lunch hour and you have obligations and things like that. So like, don't sweat it, just sign out. We'll be back here at 1 o'clock. And we're gonna have Valma kind of orient us to our afternoon activity, which will be some whole group and then some individual. So if you're stepping out, please do. I'm gonna end the chat so this recording can process. So, but there will be space at the end of all of these